Trisha Paytas is a name that a lot of people will recognize. Depending on what you've heard about her though, you'll probably either love her or hate her, because that's really all it takes, knowing one detail about her to send you like straight into one of either of those categories. My goal in making this video is to give you an understanding of why she's so polarizing. Personally, the more that I learned about her, the more conflicted I've become. We'll touch on the elements people love about her, what she's known for, her career. I'll also get into the many controversies that she's gotten herself into and things she's done in the past which have prompted a lot of hatred towards her. What I'm not gonna do is tell you how to feel about her. You're gonna have to do that yourself, babes. Or more likely, you're probably already going to have an opinion on her coming into this. After watching this though, I am curious to see what y'all are gonna say. So let's talk about Trisha. People have joked about her living so many different lives because if you take one look at her resume, you'll see why. Here's a list, and this isn't even everything, like this isn't all encompassing. She was in an episode of Modern Family, America's Got Talent, Dr. Phil, Ellen, Big Brother, My Strange Addiction, was in music videos for Eminem, Amy Winehouse, All American Rejects, Katy Perry, started a YouTube career, became involved with the Vlog Squad, Shane Dawson, released music and went on tour for it, produced her own elaborate music videos, has had drama with pretty much everyone under the sun, tried and failed to break the record for the world's fastest talker, is extremely successful on OnlyFans, has written several books, co-hosted several podcasts, got married, had 2 kids, and recently was on SNL and has an upcoming Broadway debut, all by the age of 36 years old. That's fucking crazy. Now, those are just the broad strokes. Ultimately, she's known for being an incredibly entertaining person. She has recreated Troy Bolton's iconic Bet On It music video, attempted to cook scrambled eggs for 10 minutes before realizing the stove wasn't on, has cried on the kitchen floor more times than you could count, made a song called I Love You Jesus, made this TikTok completely unprompted, named one daughter Malibu Barbie and the other Elvis. She isn't afraid to do anything and lives her life uninhibitedly. People also relate to her, whether that be because of her extravagance or vulnerability or just overall growth and journey. She's also super funny, whether that's intentional or not, people find debatable. The thing about Trisha is that for us as people who don't know her personally, it's almost impossible to get a read on her character because she has a history of lying. There's confirmed evidence of that through self-contradictions documented from her own videos on her YouTube channel, as well as her admitting herself that she is a liar. She has lied a lot before in the past. She can also be very hypocritical. She has criticized people for doing things that she's done herself. She's also admitted to putting up a front online, which everybody does, whether it be online or not. And I actually have a distinct memory of Hank Green calling her out on this and saying that Trisha puts on an act, or not even calling her out, but just like informing the public that this is an act. And he got a lot of shit for that back in the day, which is crazy. But also she's such an enigma because at times after you see a lot of her content, there are bits and pieces where you can be like, okay, I could see how she could be acting, but at the same time, it feels like it's not an act. So it's just, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to feel. Her behavior is complicated and there's so much speculation about why she acts the way she does. Some think she's calculating and manipulative, pursuing attention no matter the cost. Some people think she's like a chameleon, staying relevant by shifting who she is and how she acts to fit whatever's most popular. Others think that she's a person genuinely struggling with mental health, someone who has made a lot of mistakes, but ultimately at her core is a good person trying to do better. The main thing that I wonder about is her degree of self-awareness. Lying is a conscious act, being witty is a conscious act, so, you know, those would make the argument that everything she's doing is a conscious decision, but there are a whole bunch of other things she does that I'm not sure about. For example, she has stated in some of her older videos that she has a big imagination and a history of embellishing stories. So is it possible that she's gotten to points where she has trouble distinguishing reality from what she imagined in her mind? Memory is also a fickle thing. If you're directly contradicting yourself, and there's a record of that because, well, I mean, in her case, she has a decade plus worth record of herself by posting her own videos. That doesn't necessarily mean you're lying though. If you're genuinely misremembering something, like potentially she just got something wrong. If you say something that isn't true, but genuinely believe in what you're saying, does that make it a lie? And if you don't know what I mean by that, for example, let's say a person believes the earth is flat and they say the earth is flat. If you hook them up to a lie detector, it would probably say that they're telling the truth, but that in itself isn't the truth. I definitely was not following Trisha from, you know, at the beginning when she first started posting on YouTube, or even before that. I mean, when she first started posting on YouTube, I was literally like 4. But my initial perception of Trisha when I first was like really introduced to her was that she seemed impressionable. She seems to have patterns of idolization, whether that be a person or a movie or an aesthetic. She is capable of embracing something without fully understanding what it means. At least that's what it seems, but maybe I'm wrong. Again, it's hard to say because I don't really know if that's an act or not. But I've been talking about all this stuff very generally, and if you don't really know who she is, you might be kind of lost. So let's go through specific instances of her behavior, and then you can make your own judgments. One thing that she gets a lot of hate for is for her reputation of being a troll. And that is because she's posted videos on her YouTube channel in the past, such as why she's voting for Mitt Romney, questioning whether dogs have brains, and arguing that Hitler wasn't that bad.
I am fully supportive of Mitt Romney, and there are a few reasons why. So basically, 1, Mitt Romney is super hot.
These specific videos, she has later admitted to be rage bait, essentially, like just saying whatever she thinks will get a rise out of people. Now, these videos were posted like 10 years ago, but there's evidence of her doing similar things, albeit less extreme, a few years ago when she mentioned the possibility of gravity not being real.
Like, we actually don't need it.
What do you mean that we don't need gravity?
What if it was never invented?
Invented by who?
Sir Isaac Newton.
And saying that she didn't know what the Holocaust was. Mind you, 10 years ago, remember that video about Hitler I just mentioned? She discussed the Holocaust in that video, so there's absolutely no way that what she was saying a few years ago could be true, unless she had an extremely terrible memory, but like that probably wasn't the case.
I low-key got really sad about the Holocaust this weekend. Moses explained to me what actually happened, and I like started crying.
You just found out about the Holocaust?
I had no idea.
Now, obviously, I'm sure Trisha is well aware, but like people are well aware that these types of extreme claims get a reaction because they're absurd. But back in the day, she took it a step further. Earlier on YouTube, when being racist and doing character work was all the rage, she was right there with it. I don't think there's a demographic left that hasn't been offended by Trisha Paytas at some point. She created a character, Trishi, who was supposed to be like this Japanese pop star, and she like did an accent to accompany it and everything. She has rapped the N-word. She made a song about fetishizing black men entitled Jungle Fever, and has made multiple anti-Semitic claims. And by multiple, I mean quite a lot.
But Jew is like a derogative.
No.
My Jew lunch?
I think it's the way if you say it. I was writing like, oh, my Jew lunch.
I can tell you with 100% certainty, you cannot say that. It's offensive.
Moses said it was fine, and he is from Israel and had a bar mitzvah, so.
That is especially well documented on the Frenemies podcast.
I thought he was a full Jew, and then he's like, actually,
Well,
my mom's only Jewish. I'm like, ah.
That's full Jew.
Okay, but his dad's like Catholic.
So you want Jewish purity.
I need, yeah. That's what I'm trying to get.
You gotta stop, bro. It's weird how you fetishize Jewish people.
It's not fetishizing.
It
It's wanting
totally
to be in the upper echelon of the world. I want a free trip to Israel.
Obviously, these things are harmful, but I think people have a hard time judging her behavior because it's not totally clear if she's genuinely ignorant or is consciously hiding behind a veil of ignorance. And I think an example of this is when she was in the process of exploring her identity and pronouns, and in a video she posted to her YouTube channel, she came out as a transgender man, specifically a gay man, despite simultaneously saying that she felt completely aligned with her gender assigned at birth. And then the reasoning that she gave for this was because she feels attracted to gay men, and heavily related to the drag queen aspect of physical representation. Naturally, people were split on this. To some, it sounded like someone who had the spirit, you know, like you got the spirit, but you're just deeply, deeply confused. To others, because she got everything about gender identity and sexual orientation to be so mixed up, they thought that it had to be rage bait. Like there was no way that someone could be this confused about the subject. She later retracted her earlier statement about being transgender, and then actually came out as non-binary after seeing the responses and realizing that she didn't have the vocabulary to accurately describe, you know, how she was feeling. She currently uses she, they pronouns, by the way. I've seen people point out at one point she identified as a chicken nugget.
When you feel like a chicken nugget, you feel like not delicious. Well, you feel delicious, but you also feel like fried.
And this comes into conversation whenever people are talking about, you know, this whole era of her exploring her identity in this specific situation. But I think that the chicken nugget thing is missing a bit of context when you throw it into this mix, because she wasn't saying that she's a chicken nugget in the sense of like someone mocking people. It's not in a snarky like, oh, if you can identify as anything, then I'm going to be a chicken nugget type of thing. She was describing how she felt after a breakup, like years before this whole her coming out as transgender thing even happened. So that's the tea on that. Another point of contention has been her mental health struggles. She shared that she's been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Also, this is kind of unrelated, I'm not really sure, but she's also said that she's struggled with drug addiction to prescription pills, to be exact. In a similar vein to coming out as transgender, before fully being informed, she made videos and posted them to her YouTube channel about having both dissociative identity disorder and schizophrenia. I believe those were both self-diagnoses, although I have also seen other people say that she was like misdiagnosed with them during, the journey and process of being diagnosed with borderline. But assuming those were self-diagnoses, because, other people have also speculated that what she said about the process of being diagnosed with schizophrenia, it seems like the process went way quicker than it would have normally taken. I'm not really sure. Like, there's a lot of speculation about her and, the various mental health things that she said she's been diagnosed with, but the predominating theory is that these are self-diagnoses. And with dissociative identity disorder, she must have seen symptoms that have resonated with her and then jumped to the conclusion that she had it, which ended up not being true. And then similarly with schizophrenia, she was prescribed antipsychotics and assumed that that would only be the case if she had schizophrenia, which is not true. You can be prescribed antipsychotics without, having schizophrenia, being schizophrenic.
I understand you had a schizophrenia diagnosis at one time. That is not what you have. But I could see how if you were having these kinds of symptoms, somebody might think that.
Well, they put me on medication for schizophrenia. I don't know, like, if I have it, but that's what I'm on right now. And it's like this new. It's like, I don't know. If
No.
It's like
What was borderline was they were considering these patients borderline psychotic, and so they were people that were having psychotic symptoms, but were not schizophrenic.
That's so
Make sense?
interesting, because I went, because my therapist can't give me medication, so I went to a psychiatrist. And it was just 2 or 3 meetings, and they were like, oh, you should be on this medication. And so it's helped with it.
But regardless, it's a really irresponsible thing to do, to go online and talk about something that you've self-diagnosed yourself with to millions of people, your millions of followers, which is why some think that this is yet another example of her, doing some sort of rage bait. However, again, other people are like, well, she could also be genuinely super misinformed on the matter and like been genuinely confused. But to a certain point, you can be confused and you can be, struggling with this. But ultimately, is it an irresponsible thing to do to post all of these, thoughts to the internet without being fully informed? Especially when you have millions of followers? Yes. I think that that's definitely something that you could hold her accountable for, while also being sympathetic to her being confused and like trying to figure out bits about her identity and mental health. And also, like, just to reiterate, being ignorant is not a valid excuse for her behavior in these cases, but it does affect the light that people view her in. And another issue that comes up is whether or not she uses her mental health as an excuse for her behavior. And I honestly struggle a little bit with this concept, even in reality, let alone with people on the internet. That's a whole other ordeal. But so here's my question to you guys. So having a mental or personality disorder does affect the way that someone behaves, right? But I know people should also be held accountable for their actions, and it's not an excuse. As an empath, no, I'm kidding. Like, on a basic human level, these disorders are something that you're born with, right? And they're perhaps even further abated by environmental factors like childhood trauma. And it does make me sad when a person is struggling with these things that they didn't have any control over. But I don't know if that's, a way of me trying to excuse the behavior, but I don't know. Yes, regardless, people should still be held accountable, but it does make me feel pretty sad. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the relationships that she's had in her life, and not purely romantic, just like relationships in general. Growing up, Trisha lived in Illinois, but spent a lot of time in California as well. Because her parents were divorced, her mom lived in Illinois, her dad lived in California, and her childhood seemed a little bit tumultuous with the divorce. Her mom also got several more divorces after that, and there were issues with school, body shaming, people were bullying her. Obviously, with the divorce, that's hard on everyone, especially if you're a child, and then being bullied in school on top of that, that's another double homicide. And so she had to navigate her parents living on almost opposite sides of the country. And then on top of that, like I mentioned, Trisha's mom had a lot of different, boyfriends, husbands, exes, ex-husbands. But one guy in particular seemed really disgusting. So Trisha, in one of her old videos, referred to him and seemed to be harrowed by the experiences that involved him, and she didn't go into a lot of detail about it. But then there was a clip of her mom. So her mom was talking to the camera, and she posted this video of herself on her own YouTube channel, which I don't think exists anymore. But she was talking about one of the guys that she was involved with. I don't know if this guy is the same guy Trisha was referring to when she was talking about her harrowing experiences. But her mom said that this guy drank so much he fell into one of my daughter's beds, and then she didn't want her children to be taken away by Child Protective Services, so she told him to stop, and he said, "I can't stop." You, as a parent, cannot knowingly endanger your child like that. That's despicable. But, although Trisha in general speaks highly of her family, both her mom and her dad and her siblings, I think, and still seems close to her mom and her sister. So much so, actually, that she involves them in her OnlyFans career. I don't know to what extent. I don't know if that's still going on, but it is confirmed that she posted a video to her OnlyFans during, this was a few years ago, in which her and her sister wrestled each other in bikinis.
Your sister wrestled you in a bikini in Jell-O for dudes to beat off while your mom refereed.
Yeah.
Some kinks should be shamed.
No, that's
How about
so
like
wrong.
Pedophilia? Can we kink shame pedophiles?
That's not a kink. That's
Why?
an actual crime.
Incest is a crime.
Okay, but that's not.
So there's that.
So are you comfortable with people beating off to you and your whole family? That seems odd.
Yeah, why? I feel like that's a natural thing.
But I
probably beat off
find it
you.
funny because you're like,
I did an OnlyFans. You remember when I did that OnlyFans video with you guys in the background?
So I was editing this video and I was finding this clip and I saw this and I was like, wait a damn minute. I did remember reading somewhere that this happened. Her random lore dropped in the fact that she says it so casually, but like, that's such a violation. Oh my God.
Trisha has always claimed to be enamored with fame and the Hollywood lifestyle, so at the first chance she got, she went to pursue that. She was on all of those TV shows that I mentioned earlier, but to support herself, she was also a stripper. She got involved with some pretty scummy men around this time. She dated actor Anthony Michael Hall, who is 20 years older than her. She then dated actor Roger Bart, who is 26 years older than her. And I know these like crossovers are crazy, like Roger Bart, hello. She said that they both cheated on her and both didn't treat her right. She then dated dancer Sean Vanderwilt.
Wait, also side note, this isn't the guy she dated, but look at how fun this is. Like, I didn't realize I was looking up, like, bits about her dancing, and then this came up, and she was like a freaking dancer. Look how cool that is.
Until someone showed her Sean like at a club with another man, and then she then went online, posted a video saying he cheated on her with this man, consequently outing him. Also, did you know she dated Avi from Pentatonics? She was then in a very public relationship with Jason Nash. Now, Jason is the ex I probably know the most about, just like without even just from the top of my head before making this video. So around 2015, 2016, here's a little bit of the lore. There was this really popular YouTuber named David Dobrik. I'm sure you probably have heard of him at least once. He was known for making these 4-minute, 20-second vlogs of him and his friends, aka the Vlog Squad, and they would get into all sorts of crazy shenanigans. Me personally, I was never a fan of the Vlog Squad, partly because I feel like I wasn't like actually conscious at this time. I did not know what was going on. I didn't know how to follow the trends. I didn't know really what was going on the internet at all. I had a friend who liked the Vlog Squad, and when she showed me a video, I did not like it, partly because the vibes of watching Vlog Squad videos to me felt like watching some sort of hazing ritual. Like, there was just too much going on. I felt anxious just watching it. I can't even imagine participating in any one of the videos. But anyway, there have been a lot of times where David has endangered the lives of his friends and also complete strangers that have participated in his vlogs, violated the privacy of everyone involved as well, created a pretty toxic environment where he was at the top and everyone was seemingly like sucking up to him to get more screen time. And perhaps the person who sucked up to David the most was actually the guy that Trisha dated, Jason, who is 23 years David's senior. So him being significantly older than a lot of the Vlog Squad members did like strike people as a little bit weird because, this man has children and yet he's like frolicking around with these 21-year-olds, making passes at Tana Mojo, who was super young at the time. That's a whole other thing. But because Jason was a member of the Vlog Squad, there is some documentation of him and Trisha's relationship. People have called out Jason because of these clips for fat shaming her. She also called him out later on about the fact that he didn't respect her boundaries about what she wanted to reveal to the public about their relationship to make David happy or for the sake of better content. For example, there was actually one scenario where David and Jason were playing a prank on Trisha where David was hiding in the bathroom of Jason and Trisha's hotel room, I think it was. But Jason apparently forgot that David was even there in the bathroom. So him and Trisha, they started getting intimate, and when Trisha was fully naked, mind you, went into the bathroom, she was scared shitless by David, who was in there recording the entire time. Jason nowadays is seen as a pretty pathetic figure on the internet. He could be seen on TikTok Live begging for donations.
Come on, guys. Gotta get something bigger than that. We need a dyno. Official Haunted Beauty. Hey, Jason, when will... That's funny.
Not adding any sort of quality creative content into the world. I believe he was also at the most recent VidCon. Why? I could not tell you. The breakup was hard on Trisha. I mean, all of the breakups were hard on Trisha, which is natural. I mean, breakups are hard for everybody. But shortly thereafter, she was hospitalized, I believe, for a combination of things. I think she was mixing drugs and alcohol and was also having some sort of panic attack during the time. But, relatively, this was pretty close to when her and Jason cut things off publicly. And I know that it wasn't a clean break. There was, he was kind of stringing her along a little bit after that. But when Jason showed up to the hospital, he didn't show up by himself. Oh, no. He brought David and a camera. What the fuck? But then, after that whole ordeal, she got together with Moses, and she eventually ended up marrying this man, having 2 kids with him. So this is who she's currently still with. So now I need to give y'all some context with that, and I need to discuss frenemies. Now, I've already made a whole ass other video about frenemies, but here's the rundown. So there's this guy named Ethan Klein, and he's the face of the H3 podcast, and basically he asked Trisha to co-host a podcast called Frenemies with him. Just prior to the release of the first episode of Frenemies, he did a little show with Trisha where she was like essentially the Bachelorette, and she had all these guys, and you know how the Bachelorette works. It's one girl, bunch of guys vying to be her number one pick. And a person who was involved with that show was Moses. Now, Moses is Ethan's brother-in-law. So Ethan, his wife's name is Ela, and she works with him on the podcast, but also like helps him, or she, I think, runs the whole merch side of things with their Teddy Fresh clothing line. But anyway, that's a side tangent. Ela and Moses are siblings, brother and sister. So they just started dating, Moses and Trisha, at around the time that Frenemies started. And Frenemies is what really thrust Trisha back into mainstream popularity. It was actually my first real introduction to her, as I'm sure it was for a lot of people. Frenemies had 39 episodes in total, which was a lot longer than people thought it would be, considering there were multiple fights. It was super messy. I mean, Trisha is known to have drama with pretty much everybody. And also, like, it gets even messier because keep in mind, family is involved at this point. Trisha literally attended Ethan's Rosh Hashanah celebration. Like, she was meeting the family, obviously, because, you know, they're connected. Their children are literally cousins. So, anyways, during this podcast was when the Vlog Squad drama was brought up again, and then Trisha brought to light how David enabled toxic and harmful environments, and they discussed what happened to various members, like how her ex, Jason, SA'd another member of the group named Seth, how David was responsible for a near-death experience of one of the members, Jeff, exposed Dirty Dom, and this is all besides the point. But another thing that Trisha mentioned during these podcast episodes was her experiences getting SA'd by teachers growing up when she was in middle school specifically. So this gets into a kind of complicated side tangent, and I didn't even realize, despite me watching Frenemies and if I was there in the moment, I really wasn't totally up to date on all the drama that was happening outside of the show. And that's one thing that I definitely missed, and I wonder just how many people are in that same boat. I stumbled across this video series created by a YouTuber named Mysterious. Now, little did I know, the lore with Mysterious runs deep. A lot of details that I've gotten about Trisha's early childhood are from Mysterious's videos, but I've tried really hard to focus on the primary source, Mysterious compiled like the primary sources in their videos, because she has a lot of receipts in terms of Trisha's own videos and quotes from Trisha's books. But basically, Mysterious's main objective was to expose how Trisha is a pathological liar and was speculating about why she does that. And she was showing clips of Trisha from like 10 years ago where she talked about how she was bullied in school for, you know, her weight, and she had all these crushes on her teachers, only to fast forward to Frenemies where she's saying the complete opposite and how she wasn't bullied in school and didn't have crushes on her teachers. No, they actually SA'd her. And then Trisha, in a now deleted episode of Frenemies, or unlisted maybe, episode 17, talked about a situation where a teacher SA'd her and was eventually arrested for having CP on his computer, and she names the teacher explicitly. And I think in a follow-up TikTok tells people to look him up. Mysterious brought up that this man that Trisha named was never arrested, was supposedly a well-respected man in the community, and is now in fact dead. So Ethan took down the video since what Trisha said about him being arrested wasn't accurate, and so he wasn't sure if any of it was accurate, I guess. However, I then watched another video which said that this very YouTuber, Mysterious, is extremely anti-Trisha. Like, she has an anti-Trisha agenda because, here's the kicker, she's a major Shane Dawson stan. And so we'll get into that in a second, but this other YouTuber named Shane Dawson, who was canceled majorly in like 2020, they used to be friends, and then they had a falling out, and then ever since they had a falling out, I guess Mysterious had some sort of vendetta against Trisha or anyone who wasn't on Team Shane anymore. And also apparently, like, there were certain screenshots that Mysterious manipulated to like fit whatever narrative that she was trying to weave, and also has a history of victim blaming. And so I was completely caught off guard because literally I was looking at Mysterious's videos and being like, oh wow, this seems reasonable. But then I saw this other video and I was like, oh shit, maybe I should think a little bit more critically. I don't know what to believe anymore. But so this other YouTube video that I watched is from Dramatology. And she says that even though Trisha is wrong about the guy being arrested, I mean, clearly there's no history of the arrest and he's dead now, but that still doesn't mean that he didn't SA her. And in fact, there was another girl named Morgan who came around on Twitter during this time when episode 17 was being removed, who seemed to be from the same town, went to the same school as Trisha, is the daughter of the chief of police, and people are saying that she is who she claims to be because she essentially like had to dox herself to get this information to the public. So she was talking about how this guy was knowingly like creepy around girls and was actually potentially fired for watching something inappropriate in the classroom. Not arrested, but fired. So that's where the discrepancy comes in. And so like to this day, I feel like I still really truly we don't really know what happened, but Mysterious was all like, well, Trisha has made allegations in the past that are most likely not true. And so how are we supposed to know when she's lying and when she's telling the truth? Because she made a TikTok, Trisha made a TikTok talking about how she peed her pants during a theater rehearsal, and the teacher demanded that she get down and lick the puddle of her own piss. And in order to avoid doing that, she had to like escape out of a back window or something. And so there's that to consider, I guess. But then, also, don't you have to treat allegations on a case-by-case basis? I mean, regardless of who is making the claim. I mean, in the case of Trisha and this particular teacher who is now dead, there's also another person who's corroborating this, who seems to be who they say they are. So how can you completely discredit that when you have these two people who are saying the same thing? You know what I mean? You really do have to take it on a case-by-case basis. And even, like, I've seen firsthand how hard it can be to receive justice, I guess. Because even if you report someone to the police, and even if there are multiple people who have experienced the same thing against this one person, and even if you report them to the proper authorities, it is still very possible, and I've seen this happen, for nothing to be done. But anyways, I want to real quickly return to Shane Dawson. So, in case you're unaware, Shane Dawson was an extremely popular YouTuber known for his dark humor and conspiracy theories. Shane and Trisha were friends for quite some time, but then Shane started hanging around this guy named Jeffree Star a lot, who's a YouTuber, makeup person. If you need more lore on him, please go watch my girl Nikki's multi-part saga on this man. But anyways, Shane and Jeffree were both dabbling in makeup. They were collaborating and whatnot. And there was a situation where they were all hanging out in Vegas, I think. But Trisha ended up leaving early because they were being really mean to her, you know, speaking negatively about her weight and how she looks and everything like that. And so that started kind of the demise of their friendship, because not long after that, Shane got majorly canceled for a myriad of things, including being racist, making inappropriate jokes about minors, bestiality allegations, and for his involvement with Dramageddon involving Tati, Jeffree, James Charles. That's a whole other thing that I'm not even going to try to get into right now, but it was a crazy time. Something interesting to note as well is that Shane's past and Trisha's are quite similar in terms of things that they can get canceled for. I mean, Shane quite literally did get canceled for that. And granted, I mean, I was actually just with a friend and we remembered that Shane Dawson existed, and so we looked up his channel, and he's still getting millions of views on his videos. So, you know, in a sense, how can someone really truly get canceled? Because James Charles, he's also getting millions of views and whatnot, even though he should have been canceled. But it's a little bit in comparison to their prime, you know what I mean, where you can see the cancellation, but it's also, the internet has a short memory. But also, I feel like because of their major cancellation, they can never fully bounce back to where they were. It's an interesting thing to note because, like I just mentioned, so Trisha has also made inappropriate comments about minors, has also had a racist past. Like, the anti-Semitism things happened not too long ago. And she also has quite an extensive history of being on the wrong side of drama. But it does make me wonder, like, how did we get to the point where, you know, Shane and Trisha are at such different points, like, career-wise, and have such different they get such different treatment by the internet. But when Shane was getting canceled, Trisha still defended him until Jeffree's hairstylist flew completely off the rails and was attacking her. And through this interaction, it was pretty clear that Shane was loyal to Jeffree. And then, so, you know, that really ended their friendship. And then she started bashing him, making her videos, talking about him. But Trisha, like I've alluded to, has been in her fair share of drama. When that happens, like I just mentioned, she makes a ton of YouTube videos talking about them, and now TikTok videos aimed at whoever she's beefing at, lashes out in a major way, usually exposing private details and information and conversations in the process. This has happened with a bunch of people, including Shane Dawson.
This is crazy. This is insane. This is insane.
This is insane. This is insane. This woman is a fucking... I'm gonna wait till as many...
How do I count the ways how insane this all is? And they knew all this. They knew all this. And so Ryland's straight up just lied.
Charli D'Amelio.
Okay, unpopular opinion, this will, like, whatever. She's boring. Like, I can't even, like, get through
Well, she's like a young
minute.
girl.
I'm just gonna say, Trisha Paytas, like, this is not... Sorry. Just, you have been completely rude to me multiple times, saying she doesn't have a personality, she can't dance, she's basic. Like, you have your own problems, please stop worrying about mine. You're not a very nice person.
She's a 16-year-old
I don't
girl.
think no one expects it, but she called me out for calling her boring. I'm like, girl, not everyone's gonna get what you're doing. Like, you are boring, you don't dance well.
James Charles.
I didn't want to respond to this because I didn't want to give Trisha the attention that she's clearly craving. However, I've now been accused of being a child groomer, and this is not an accusation that I'm going to take lightly. To insinuate that the relationship between Charli and I is anything other than just a friendship is absolutely disgusting. Pack it up and work on holding yourself and your best friends around you, because they and you are the problem.
A person whose name rhymes with Stabby Tana.
Put a finger down if you've been personally victimized by Gabby Hanna and she's creepily obsessed and stalking you right now and you don't know what to do and your hands are literally shaking because of it. 3 years ago, my boyfriend at the time told me that Gabby Hanna told him I had herpes, which I don't, to which I was like, okay, weird, but whatever. And then she kept wanting to be my friend years and years later after I became non-friends with her, non-friends. And I was like, oh my God, no, this is why I don't want to be friends with you. You have herpes. And she goes, okay, well, I still feel I'm in the right. I'm like, okay, cool, but I don't want to be friends with you. Then she keeps asking every mutual friend that we have that are no longer her friends that are like, hey, does Trish talk about me? And I'm like, I don't know, whatever. because obviously I talk shit about her. And to which I was like, okay, this is kind of weird or whatever. And then she posted on Instagram story 5 months later, Trisha has herpes to all her followers, to which I had to reply, Gabby Hanna, stop telling people I have herpes. I don't want to be your friends. I do talk shit about you. This is why. Stop asking my friends. To which then she makes a podcast talking about it 6 months later to promote her shitty music. And I'm like, okay, this is fucking weird. And I'm like, shit, I didn't start it, but then I had to show that she literally started it. Then I reacted to her saying she's making a song about me because she's still obsessed with me. And I did TikTok being like, oh my God, stop obsessing over me. Then she said she wants to stay out of the drama, but now she's on Drama Alert still talking about me and saying she doesn't want to see me get hurt or burned. And now I'm really, really scared for my life. And Gabby Hanna is a freak.
Ethan Klein, Hila Klein.
She was saying how Hila doesn't like her.
Hila says, don't talk about me on the podcast. All I said was you should have the guest. He's like, we can't mention Hila. She doesn't want me to talk about, oh, she's too good for a fucking podcast. Even though we were talked about, they never once consulted me at the beginning of spring. She has a fucking podcast. I brought life to the fucking H3 channel, but oh, Hila's too fucking good to even mention her name. I said nothing bad. I said like, oh, we should have her as a guest or whatever. Like that. Don't even mention Hila. She doesn't want to be talked about. Fucking
Colleen Ballinger. Actually, let me explain the tea on Colleen, aka Miranda Sings. So Colleen was exposed for having inappropriate interactions with fans who were minors, specifically being like in group chats with them talking about her sex life and other mature content that she is like a 30-something-year-old woman should not have been talking about to minors. And so she then apologized for this through a ukulele song, The Toxic Gossip Train. You just had to be there. Trisha and Colleen had been friends and they had a podcast together, which ended when Colleen was exposed yet again for saying nasty things in a group chat about Trisha, this time behind her back, about her weight and such, which is a really awful pattern to witness, despite whatever you may think about Trisha. Like, so many people Trisha has associated with at one point have made fun of her for something that she has expressed to be really insecure about, because this is something that she would get made fun of for in school, like as a child, but now it still haunts her to this day with freaking Colleen and Shane Dawson and even Ethan Klein poking fun at her at one point. So anyway, all that being said, now we finally get to Moses. Of all the things I've mentioned about Trisha's problematic behavior, maybe you've already heard something at this point that's made you uncomfortable supporting her, and I understand that, but for me, this situation is the most difficult to look past. So Trisha has said in a Rolling Stone interview that when she and Moses met, she was a mess. She drove to his house so many times high and stood naked on his porch, threatened to kill herself. There was a TikTok that she and Moses have made together, like later when they're, you know, pretty well into their relationship. And it was one of those put a finger down, toxic partner edition.
Put a finger down if they wouldn't let you hang out with the opposite sex. Put a finger down if they wouldn't let you like certain people's photos. Put a finger down if they got mad if you didn't respond in 5 minutes. Put a finger down if they ever got physical or threw something at you. Put a finger down if they ever forced you sexually. Put a finger down if you got to keep your location services on. Put a finger down if they threatened to kill themselves if you tried to break up with them. Put a finger down if they've called you names. Put a finger down if they called you overly sensitive, but really they were just being mean. And lastly, put a finger down if they've ruined your life.
And Moses put his finger down for like every single one of them. And it was supposed to be in like a haha jokey way, but like, is that something you joke about based on things that are public information? I don't think we can laugh about that. These are concerning details of your relationship. They met during quarantine, so their relationship seemed to progress really fast from what I remember, because they were essentially like living and spending a lot of time together right off the bat. So now they're married, they have 2 kids, and they seem happy and whatnot. However, there was a really disturbing incident during Frenemies. You can go back and watch like the episodes. You'll be able to like see how this goes down a little bit, but there was drama with Moses shit-talking Trisha behind her back. I don't know if they were on a break or something or what, but he was messaging other women, and through that, it came out that Trisha hit Moses, like left these substantial bruises on his arm, and then Ethan brought it up on the podcast, and Trisha was furious that he did that because that led to these messages being leaked and the picture of his bruises being leaked.
What are you guys talking about specifically?
The arm thing.
How did people get photos of it? I didn't put that out.
After you said it on the podcast, that account was like, now that it's out on the podcast, I'm going to post these photos. My boyfriend got catfished by someone, said something about an altercation we had that nobody knew. Ethan brought it up on the podcast. That makes me look like I'm a domestic abuse, like I'm a person that hits my partner. And like that was out in the open. And we even said, Moses, like, stop, cut it. We're like, don't put that in the thing. What does he do? He puts it in the fucking thing.
Wait,
it was
hold
never
on.
it was never fucking public.
Well, maybe you shouldn't hit him.
I agree, but that is something that is so fucking personal that you said, and we're like, please edit it out. It was a fucking weak moment, and our relationship will never get past that. And I even tell him that. Now everyone thinks I'm a fucking like a man beater and shit like that because of you.
I will own up to a picture of abuse that I have to Moses. That's out there. And it sucks.
And when this happened and when Ethan was talking about her hitting Moses, I was confused. Like, I remember being confused during the time because that's a serious allegation and it's not even an allegation anymore. Now we know it to be true. But the show continued as always. And I'm definitely not blaming, anybody involved other than Trisha for that. But I do find it odd looking back that Ethan saw Trisha abusing his brother-in-law and then continue to keep her as a co-host. I feel like the reason that people might sweep that under the rug or not even fully being aware that that happened is because the show continued as normal. Like, if the show had stopped, obviously people would remember, like, why it ended and what Trisha did. Because things continued as normal, I think that that may be a reason why people don't really remember and perhaps didn't take the particular incident as seriously, but that's just my theory. So when Frenemies eventually came to an end a while later, there was definitely a lot of family tension at that point, particularly between Hila and Moses. It's something that they all avoid talking about to this day, but mainly the split seemed to be a money issue with Trisha, feeling like she wasn't being fairly compensated, and Ethan was like, actually, you're getting a very fair rate considering you do nothing but show up and my crew prepares literally everything. But again, I feel like the core of that issue is probably personal among their families, but who really knows? So now, in terms of where Trisha's at recently, she has a podcast called Just Trish, which actually I've been mentioned a couple times on that podcast. Shout out Oscar. She also has a podcast with Tana Mojo. She was just recently on SNL.
If you go on Saturday Night Live, I will. What's something really valuable I could put on the line?
Like what?
I'll cut my arm off.
Has been doing things with Wicked. I think she went to the Wicked premiere. She also, is about to make a Broadway debut, which has been a dream of hers for so long. She now, like I mentioned, is a mother with 2 daughters, and people have seen her podcast endeavors and her recently, especially within the last month or so. They've seen her and seen her behavior. And also I feel like I saw in the Rolling Stones article how with Trisha, it's hard because she's been on the internet for so long, but especially recently, it seems like she's matured with her trolling era ending, perhaps, because there was that whole thing where when Trisha's first daughter was being born, the Queen of England had just died. And it was like a weird coincidence, and people thought that the queen was going to be reincarnated into her baby. But she didn't really run with that joke as much as probably past Trisha would have. On top of that, when the Colleen Ballinger drama was going down, she didn't lash out with as many videos as she probably would have in the past. It was just like a one and done, serious, pretty well-spoken deal. So people are seeing all of these things, and granted, marriage and motherhood don't automatically, heal you, but it does give you a little bit more perspective, and, as time goes on and as she's getting older, she's definitely seemed to have matured and grown, but, on the flip side of that, there are things in the past which she's done. One thing is that the internet is pretty inconsistent with how it doles out punishment, I guess. I was just talking about the similarities between her and Shane. And then also I was thinking about Brad Pitt. I honestly don't really know what happened with that, but I have heard people mention how he's been abusive with, I don't know if it's physical, if it's just emotional and verbal, but to his wife and to his children. He's still well regarded in Hollywood and generally among the public, but other people like Chris Brown, unless I'm misremembering who that was, aren't. Here's the thing. I've realized through making this video that loving and hating Trisha Paytas has come with a bit more nuance. You may not like her as a matter of personal preference and or for literally any of the reasons that I mentioned in this video, or you may like her and choose to simply disregard her past actions, or you may just be blissfully unaware of them until right now. If you fall into the former category, you may disregard her actions because you believe that she's unaware of the harm she's committing. Like, you just think that she is, you know, potentially ignorant, but like with a good heart, trying her best, is a little bit of a dumb blonde, but perhaps like, you know, the mental health issues. You may choose to excuse her on that front, but, you know, probably not something that you should do. But here's the kicker, right? If you sense her intelligence and her cunning and her wit and her comedy, as I do, you'd also have to acknowledge the fact that she is intentional with what she does. And she consciously chooses to say and do the things that she does. And some of those things have been pretty bad, have been pretty awful, have been harmful things to say and do. And so I think that's where the contradiction and where the conflict comes in. Because those two things in your mind, like after seeing a lot of her content and after feeling like you've understood her a little bit more, that really comes into conflict. And Trisha, I mean, she has always apologized for everything. I feel like she's apologized for every single thing that she's been called out for down the line. And I feel like people have mentioned that it's a privilege to be given this many chances. I mean, she has been given a lot of chances by the internet. I mean, granted, maybe it's not even chances. Maybe it's just like bad memory on the part of the internet, and new people just come about and they see, you know, Trisha living her life, doing her glamorous, silly things and falling in love with her. And I could totally understand how that would happen. I also could understand how someone who has been keeping track with her during all this time and have been seeing the things that she's done and the harm that she's caused to other people and getting trust issues when it comes to her. Because it's not the first time that Trisha has, I feel like Frenemies actually was the first time, well, maybe it wasn't the first time, but it's the first time in my mind where she has tried to like do a little bit of a turnaround, and that ended up like not exactly panning out the way people wanted her redemption arc to turn out. Anyways, my point is that I understand if people have trust issues in regards to her. Like, I can understand how people might be skeptical that she, you know, has fully turned over a new leaf. So my question, I guess I'll leave you with is, who is she really? No, I'm genuinely, like, when I was watching all these videos, like, I'm really try to make sure that I'm not getting like too swayed. And some of the stuff that people like say and speculate about her, I'm like, wow, that's pretty bold to be like psychologically analyzing her like that and making those types of claims. Cause like, what if you're totally wrong? You've never met the woman. But yeah, I'm curious now with all of this in mind, how do you feel? How do you feel about her? What's the standard? What are we deeming as unforgivable? I know that no one can really remain canceled because if you continue to post like you were really, really popular at one point, you're probably still gonna get views. But like, is it one heinous act that will get you canceled forever? Is it a pileup of smaller problematic acts? Like, and then it reaches a certain threshold and then the internet gets fed up with you? Apparently not, because Trisha is still out there and she's still doing her thing. But yeah, interesting conversations to be had. Anyways, I think this is my last video of 2024. It's been a real one. I thank you guys so much for being here as always, and I hope that 2025 is good for y'all. Okay, that's it. Bye. Love you.